Have you ever wanted to get involved in real estate development, but didn't know where to begin? Do you think real estate development is only for the large hedge funds or major corporations, the big guys? Or have you done some development in the past and are looking to scale up? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to the W.I.R.E.D Wealth and Real Estate Development Podcast. I am your host, Nick Smith. Get ready to have your mind blown and rewired as we discuss all aspects of creating wealth and real estate development. This is Nick Smith coming at you one more time with the W.I.R.E.D podcast, where we talk all things wealth and real estate development. I am your host, Nick Smith. I want to welcome you all to episode 5. I definitely want to take this opportunity to thank all of those that have either subscribed or downloaded. We do have a YouTube channel, so I encourage you guys to go over to YouTube, search Wired with Nick Smith, and my podcast will definitely come up. Definitely encourage you guys, please subscribe. This goes a long way in me spreading this Wired message. For sure, we are currently on Spotify and Amazon Music, still working on getting on Apple Music. But I do want to thank everybody that has downloaded an episode or that has listened to an episode. And I do truly hope that this podcast, this environment is being a blessing to you and you are learning something about the real estate development space. Today, I wanted to talk about something definitely I think that is of vital importance to doing any type of development or any type of real estate investing, period. And that is finding the best areas to do development in, finding the best locations. There's always the old saying that goes, the 3 most important things in real estate are location, location, location. Definitely think there's some validity to it. There's more than location, but that definitely is by far one of the most important things. But how do you determine what's a good location? What things should you be looking for? Who should you be talking to? All those type of questions. And we're going to delve into it. I've got about 3 key points that I want to touch on, plus a bonus as we get toward the end. But what should we be looking for? So number 1 is population, areas that have some population growth. I won't even say that there needs to be a certain target of population growth, but you want to see some growth, something happening with the population. So U-Haul, those of you all know the moving company U-Haul, they have a report that they release at the end of every year. So they released one at the beginning of this year that actually covered last year. So they released it at the beginning of the year, but it covers the year preceding or the year prior. And what it monitors and what it shows is how many one-way U-Haul trips were made, and it ranks them by state. So why are one-way U-Haul trips important? Because one way means one way. People left one area and migrated to another one, and they did not move from that area. So top 5 states that were migrated to in 2022. First one was Texas. It was Texas, number 1, Florida, number 2, South Carolina, number 3, North Carolina, number 4, and Virginia was number 5. Texas, Florida, South Carolina were actually in the top 5 for 2021 as well. So we see the trend, and we know for sure that the Southeast has been, really leading the way for population growth. Me being a Hoosier, being from Indiana, I was also pleasantly surprised to see that Indiana was actually in the top 15. Indiana was ranked number 14. It actually went down from where it was in 2021. It was actually number 6 in 2021. But our fellows our neighbors over in Illinois did not fare as well. Illinois in 2022 was actually number 49. They were number 49. And if you follow the states and if you follow Illinois, you know that Illinois does have some challenges right now, political challenges, financial challenges. Property taxes are crazy high in Illinois. So they were number 5. You want to be where people are going. You want to develop where people are going. Development is a business. And in order for any business to be successful, you got to have people. You need people. I know we're in a virtual climate now. Since the pandemic, that has really heightened a lot of things we could not do virtually, or they were not as popular to be done virtually. Since the pandemic, that trend has just accelerated. It's accelerated, but businesses still need people. You have to have people. Population tells a story. You know, a lot of times we want to see, 100%. You want to see population growth, but sometimes population decrease or population decline or population stagnation can be somewhat misleading. So you really have to dig into it. Case in point, if you've been following or if you listen to the first few episodes, I'm in Indiana. I'm in Lake County, Indiana, which is Northwest Indiana. We are very close to the city of Chicago, but there's a certain area in our county, in Lake County, the North Lake County portion, East Chicago, Gary, Hammond. Those areas were the areas where those cities were the cities where this region was really birthed. That's where the old steel mills were. That's where, a lot of the local economy stemmed from, those areas. But if you're familiar with what happened in kind of the 80s, going into the 90s, the steel mill industry hit a major decline. Steel mill industry definitely does not employ nearly the amount of people that it employed back in the 60s, 70s, and even prior to that. So those areas, of course, hit a major population decline. Gary at one time was, I know, over 100, possibly. I think they may have been at 150,000 population. It was a huge city, and Gary still is a huge city, but it's nowhere near that population now. But if you were to only look at the population, you may determine that those areas are not viable when that's not the case. There's still a lot of vibrancy going on in some of those areas. When it comes to cyclical motions of real estate development or just municipal economies, they tend to move in an up-down shape. And those areas now, yeah, they are somewhat down, but they are starting to pick back up. There are signs of life starting to happen, in those areas. But you won't see that from the census data. You won't see that from the major websites. That's just not something you'll see. But you do want to pay attention to population because you don't want to go somewhere where everybody is literally fleeing. Everybody is, for lack of better words, they're jumping the ship. You don't want to go there. You want to go where people are coming to. You want to go where people are going. In this, because whether you're developing houses, whether you're developing commercial space, you have to have somebody to fill that space. You have to have somebody to fill that space. You have to have buyers to buy your home. You have to have renters to rent your apartments. You have to have tenants to fill your commercial spaces. If you want to sell your commercial spaces, you have to have businesses that want to buy those commercial spaces. So population is definitely something that you want to track and you want to be knowledgeable of. If you want to, look at that U-Haul report, it is publicly accessible. If you just Google U-Haul report 2022, it will come up, but I'll also put the link in the show notes for this. And another good place to start is honestly just Google the population for whatever city you're interested in, or county or state, and Google will actually show you, and they pull the information from the census data. It'll actually show you what the trend for the past, 2 to 3 decades has been for that area for population. It's always a good place to start. Second place, and this is kind of my favorite place to start or location to consider when you're thinking about where some of the best places to invest. Second place is you want to invest somewhere that you have a competitive advantage. A competitive advantage is literally that. It's something that gives you an advantage over the competition, because in development, there is competition. If you're looking to develop a piece of property, more than likely, there's going to be some competition on that property. You may not be the only one that's interested in that property. but you want to go somewhere where you have competitive advantage. You want home court advantage. You want home court advantage. And a lot of times that place begins in your own backyard. A lot of people don't see or they don't observe what opportunities are happening just in their local area. Reading a book now, and you all, I'm sure many people have heard of the book by Russell Cornwell or Conwell, Acres of Diamond. It was a speech that he gave many, many years ago. Of course, Russell Conwell is no longer alive, but it was a speech that he gave, and it talks about, well, the title of it was Acres of Diamonds. And it chronicles the life of this guy that literally he left his homeland in search of gold. He left it for the gold rush during that era, and he leaves his home and ends up living a minuscule life from that point. Did not ever find gold when he went searching, and his life just went down. It went down, and eventually he died without ever finding gold. But the gentleman that actually purchased his property was searching with another gentleman, and they actually stumbled across diamonds. Excuse me, I said gold, but I meant diamonds. Ali Hafed was his name. He never found diamonds in his quest to go out to find it. But the gentleman that purchased his land, turns out that diamonds were on Ali Hafed's property the whole time. And we, a lot of times in real estate, we don't see the diamonds that are in our own backyard. We see the problems, but we don't see the diamonds. And as a developer, again, your wiring has to change. You have to look at things, you have to look at markets, you have to look at areas from a different viewpoint. You have to look at opportunities instead of the risk. Granted, will there be risk? 100%. Nothing we do in life does not come without risk, but we have to see the opportunities. You have to look from a different vantage point. You have to look and see, are there new businesses coming, to my area? Is there some new housing? It may not be a plethora. You may not have 100 single family home development in your area, but is somebody building a new home? Somebody rehabbing an apartment building? You have to look, see where those areas are. And are there, one of the key things you want to see, are there some national businesses, coming to your area? Because a lot of these national businesses do a large amount of demographic study before they come to an area. They're checking population, they're checking the demographics of an area, checking the income levels, education levels. And they're not going to invest that amount of money into an area that they don't deem is viable. Case in point, my hometown, East Chicago, right now currently has a Wendy's that's being developed. Against fast food, of course, we can get into that debate, that argument. Of course, fast food is definitely not the best, but that does show some bright spot, in that, because Wendy's is not just going to go anywhere. That's just the bottom line. Wendy's is not going to go anywhere. And to see that coming along with some other, national developments, happening. Look at Gary, Indiana. Hard Rock Casino just came there, what, 3 or 4 years ago, built a multi hundreds of $1 million complex in Gary, Indiana. So you have to look at what's going on in your backyard. And if not your backyard, somebody else's backyard. Where else do you have a competitive advantage through boots on the ground? You got to have boots on the ground in some places. So it may not be your backyard, but maybe you got some family members in an area. Maybe you have some people you went to college with in an area. Family members, close friends, networks of people in areas. You really want to have somebody at the ground level, somebody that physically can see what's going on, not just through Google Earth and Google Maps. Real estate is real. That's the key word in real estate, is the word real. So first thing we want to look at is population. Where are people going to? Again, that U-Haul report is very eye-opening and telling. Second thing you want to consider and finding a good area to do some projects in is your backyard. Look in your backyard. You know, there are some challenging areas that are definitely experiencing more difficulties than others in doing development or just real estate in general. Again, we talked about Illinois. There's some challenges with the state of Illinois. When I think about other states, California, think about what's going on there, New York, all of those places. There are some viable and real challenges with those areas. But even in those areas, guess what? Somebody's still developing. Somebody's still putting up buildings. Somebody's still doing some things. Maybe some hurdles that you got to go through, but again, you got competitive advantages. Sometimes that'll even help in your more challenging areas. So, third thing, and this is kind of one of the most important things, in my opinion, is the local municipality government friendly? Is the local municipality not government friendly? Is the local government of the municipality, are they development and business friendly? Some local municipalities don't want to see a lot of growth and development. When you get in some of your more rural areas, they like being considered quote unquote farm towns and more rural places. So they don't want to see a lot of expansion. They don't want to see a lot of population growth. I hear here in our local area, some of the more southern cities in our county, a lot of people are moving further south because they feel that their areas are becoming too overpopulated. But you want to know that. You want to know what's the climate of the government there, because they control your permitting process. So if you're doing development or even if you're doing construction, first of all, I would never suggest, and people try to cheat the system, and they want to do construction or new construction or rehabs, and they want to do it, especially on rehabs. People try to cheat the system. It's hard to do it it's almost impossible to do it with new construction because you have to go through a whole zoning process and, pulling permits. But some people try to cheat the system with rehabs by not pulling permits, and these are building permits. But if you're doing a new construction project and the local governing body or the local building department, it takes them 6 months to a year to potentially even just approve your permit. That's something you want to be careful of and be knowledgeable of, because that is a whole year of pretty much just wasted time. So you want to be cautious of that. Not only the time it takes to get your building permits approved and issued, but what are the costs of your building permits and impact fees? This is something that can make or break a development. So I'm looking at a development now, again, to put up some single family homes, 3 of them, in one of the cities here in my county on the southern side. Did some calling, did some due diligence, and just kind of started, making some calls. And again, that's when you get further into the process. Nothing beats a phone call. So called the local building department, their building and planning department, found out, per home, the cost just for the permits and the fees, impact fees, zoning fees, all of that, 20 grand off top. Before you even stick a shovel in the ground, you almost at 20 grand. And just municipal fees, something you need to know, something you should know up front, because those fees, I consider them like junk fees. Got to pay them, but they don't add anything to your bottom line. But these are fees that you have to be knowledgeable of. We're not talking about architecture fees, various studies, soil samples, all of those type of things. These fees are just literally to the municipality for building in their city. Have to know it. Some cities are even more expensive than that. And especially when you start getting into commercial, it could be hundreds of thousands just in permitting fees. And so Not saying that you can't develop there, but those are costs you definitely need to be aware of. And does the municipality, do they even want to see development? Again, we talked about this. Some areas don't want to see development. Do they want to see it? And if they want to see it, what do they want to see? I encourage all developers, you should get familiar with looking at comp plans, and those are comprehensive plans for any municipality that you want to work in. They could be on the county level, could be on local city level. You should look in their comp plans. Make sure the comprehensive plans are up to date, because if it's 2 or 3 administrations behind, some things more than likely have changed. Priorities may have changed, but you want to look at those plans and see what they want. Certain municipalities don't want to see a lot of apartments. Some municipalities are anti-apartment, especially when you start talking about quote unquote affordable housing. Affordable housing. When a lot of times when people hear the word or the term affordable housing, they instantly think of low income, Section 8 housing projects. That's what they think of. Whereas it's not the case. A lot of your low income housing tax credit, LIHTC projects, they're mixed income. These people have to have some type of income, coming in, but it's meant to be affordable. The rent they pay is based off of the income that they generate. But a lot of towns, some municipalities, the leadership, and even some residents, they have a stigma against apartments. But you need to know that. You need to know that up front, because it's no sense in you putting 3 to 6 months of pre-planning and pre-development work together just to find out they don't want to see it anyway. This is stuff that you could be doing in the beginning. You need to be checking with, again, the business climate. If you're looking to develop commercially, how easy is it to get a business permit there? In the municipality that you're building in. Getting into rezoning a project, that's a whole nother animal. And I talked about that in, I believe it's episode 3. We talked about that, how to work with the city. Again, that was primarily pertaining to developments where the city or the municipality owns the land, but not all your developments are going to come when the city owns the land. Some developments, you're going to have private landowners that you got to work with. And in addition to the private landowners, you have to work with the local government. So want to be knowledgeable about what do they want. Is the government there easy to work with? Do they want to see new business? Do they want to see growth? Do they want to see expansion? Do they want to see new housing? You want to know that. You want to find that out. And a good place to start with that is checking with even your local chambers of commerce, in the areas that you are. They make up a lot of the business leaders, of the area. And then there are other organizations that you can check with, that you should check with. So in about another episode of 2, I'll be having on a young lady named Sherry Ziller. She is the executive director of the RDA in our area, which is the Regional Development Authority, and they have their hands in a lot of developments that happen, throughout our county. But you need to talk to those type of people, see what is going on. Episode or so ago, I had on Milt Peterson, who was the developer of a condominium complex here locally in our area in Maryville, Indiana. And he talked about how he, tried to bring that development to another town here, and they shot it down. Went over to Maryville and found a much more development-friendly climate. Not everybody wants what you have. It's just the bottom line. It doesn't mean what you have is not bad, or it doesn't mean what you have is bad. It just means they don't want it. And if they don't want it, go somewhere else where it is wanted. So again, good areas to start. Want to look at areas with good population growth. Want to look in your backyard for sure. Remember, acres of diamonds. Don't forsake or forget to look for the diamonds in your own backyard. Then you also want to look where there are development-friendly climates amongst the government, amongst the business, amongst the town. Want to see where there's some business-friendly and development-friendly practices. Bonus, I'll tell you, these are bonuses. And this is more granular The three that we've talked about have been more on a broader scale, but this is more granular. You really want to look at vacancy rates and absorption rates. So vacancy rates are how much of a particular product is vacant and for how long does it stay vacant. And that gets into the absorption rate. That means how quickly is a product type, a real estate product type, absorbed into the market? How quickly does it gets filled? And this is important because you don't want to, right now the office space is experiencing some challenges. A lot of businesses have not gone back to the office. I personally believe that's going to lead to a lot of opportunity kind of to repurpose these buildings, because the price on them are going to have to come down at some point in time. And, in order to make a lot of conversions work, you have to get it at a affordable price, because conversions are not easy and they're not cheap. But it would be foolish to go somewhere, build offices, when the offices that are already there are not being filled. If the majority of the offices in the area that you're going are not being filled, why would you build more offices? It just wouldn't make sense. Would not make sense. Same thing with single family homes. You think of absorption rates. Why would you build more single family homes when the single family homes that are there are not selling? Could be a number of reasons why they aren't selling. Could be price. A lot of times it comes down to price. They might be having it listed a little too high, but you have to be careful, with that. If you're looking at lease space, it's a beautiful building that was just built in my hometown. It's a kind of warehouse / distribution center space. Beautiful building, but it's been sitting vacant for a long time. It's not being filled. They're actively advertising for tenants, but the building's not being filled. Every day a property sits vacant is losing money. That's the bottom line. Every day a property sits vacant is losing money. And there's a daily cost to holding a vacant unit, and that's what you don't want. So hope you all gotten some from this podcast. Again, I encourage you all to follow me on YouTube. Go over to YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Just look up Wired with Nick Smith. Again, I am on Spotify, so I encourage you all to subscribe there. Working on getting the approval for Apple, but I am on Amazon Music. Again, encourage you all to subscribe, follow me. We're going to make this podcast continue to grow and expand. Again, this is Nick Smith signing off for episode 5. Let's get wired up. Thank you all. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please share this content with someone else who would benefit from it. I'm looking forward to having you with me on the next episode. Now go out and create some wealth in real estate development.